The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, good afternoon. This is Nick Koufou. I'm the Managing Director of EPMS, Enterprise Performance Management Systems Limited. We're working on a joint webinar with CXO-Cockpit, and it's entitled Linking Your EPM Data to Enable Improved Financial Reporting. I've worked with on Oracle EPM solutions for the last 15 or 20 years, implementing and developing HFM, Hyperion Enterprise, and microcontrol. And I know from experience that even though the actual solutions may be good solutions, the actual reporting aspects of these solutions could be much improved. And this is one of the main reasons why EPMS, my consultancy, has partnered with CXO-Cockpit to provide superior financial reporting. So we'll go on to the next slide. And the speakers involved will be two. One is Alfonso Colonino, who's the CXO Regional Director for UK, Ireland and the Nordics, and Nick Koufou, myself, Managing Director of EPMS. The agenda will be a 45-minute webinar. At the end of that 45 minutes, if you have, if you have any questions during the webinar, if you can enter them in the chat box, and we can go through them at the end of the 45-minute webinar if we have time. As I said, introduction to EPMS. EPMS, I'm the Managing Director of EPMS, which specialises in the EPM space, the Enterprise Performance Management space, or CPM space, as the Americans call it, the Corporate Performance Management space. EPMS specialises in budgeting, forecasting and planning solutions, consolidation solutions, reporting and analysis solutions, profitability and cost management, strategic planning, and performance scorecard, etc. This basically makes up the EPM space. So I've been a independent consultant for 15 or 20 years, as I said before, and been involved in implementing and developing Oracle consolidation products. I've recently formed my consultancy EPMS to try and persuade customers that the reporting aspect of the solutions that they are using could be much improved. The big advantage, the main advantage of CXO-Cockpit is that CXO-Cockpit focus on the reporting aspect of financial reporting, and therefore their reports are much improved and have far more insight, and this provides an excellent option to CXOs, CEOs, CFOs, finance directors, financial controllers. They can see a profit and loss statement, they can see product detail, they can see a drill down to net sales by month, a drill down to net sales by customer, they can see commentary, they can see cash dashboards, etc., etc. Extremely useful data to CXOs, and data that provides them with enough information to make good decisions. So now I will hand you over to Alfie, who will carry out a live demonstration of CXO-Cockpit. Hopefully you will enjoy what you see. Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, Alfie.
Thanks, Nick. Thanks very much for that introduction. So what I'm going to do now is just take you through the typical month-end reporting process, the challenges that we see when we speak to customers in the marketplace. So typically thinking about month-end reporting, just focusing on that one particular issue, typically organizations generate a month-end reporting pack after the month-end has closed. They have their data in multiple source systems as represented on the left-hand side of the screen. So the first step is to generally think about a reporting pack. Now, where there is no system in place, they tend to use add-in solutions like SmartView in the Oracle world and other add-in solutions, but generally these are Excel add-ins. And so the first step is typically to extract data from underlying source systems that form the basis of the information for the reporting pack. And as my example shows on the screen, multiple systems will mean multiple Excel sheets that are generated. So the first step that generally happens in the Office of Finance is to actually join all of those Excel sheets together into one, bring all that data together. And then the second part of that manual process is to add the new month's data to the previous month. And of course, there's a lot of manual copying and pasting and making sure that every tab within the Excel sheet is actually correct. The third step is actually to think about, well, okay, it's great to have the numbers, it's great to have the variance calculations in place, but then we need to also collect some commentary. And to do that, generally what we found is that then there's possibly the Excel sheet is sent out to the individual entities or divisions as explained within the screen that we can see here. And for the individual entities or divisions to actually enter their commentary. Of course, that's then distributed back to the center. And of course, then there's another manual task of, again, stitching together all of that commentary or rolling all that commentary, aggregating it all and creating some kind of summary so that the management and the board and the Office of Finance can actually make sense of that commentary to explain what's going on within the numbers. Of course, that's taken place. Once it's done, the final version of the commentary plus the actual numbers and non-financial data is actually combined into a final pack, which is then distributed to the end users. It could be a printed PowerPoint, it could be a PDF document that's emailed out, it could be the original Excel spreadsheet. What we're describing here is a very manual, labor-intensive process that's incredibly error-prone, and a lot of people on the webinar will probably recognize this process. So, CXO-Cockpit was actually developed to provide a digital performance reporting solution, which is an incredibly niche solution to solve this specific issue. So again, if we look at the data coming from the underlying source systems, we have a secure way of actually extracting that data. And in a moment, I will share with you how we do that. But from an overview perspective, essentially the value of CXO-Cockpit is around some of the key features that we've developed within the solution to enable a lot of the problems described on the previous slide to be resolved. Those are listed on the screen, and I'll be going through some of those in the demonstration in a couple of moments to show you the difference between our solution and the current solution that a lot of organizations are struggling with. So if I can move on to a unique feature, and this is around the connectivity to the underlying source systems, and it's probably the major strength of CXO-Cockpit. So on the screen, we can see a list of predefined adapters, EPM adapters, that CXO-Cockpit has already built. So these adapters allow CXO-Cockpit to essentially view the metadata, the hierarchy, the chart of accounts, the structures, the dimensions that are already created within the underlying source system. Outside of those adapters, we also then have the ability to pick up data from data sources not listed as part of those adapters. And typically, we would use the data warehouse adapter, which allows us to connect to Excel files. It allows us to connect to CRM systems, some examples on the screen, and also possibly HR systems, procurement systems, etc. So that final layer at the bottom allows the additional sources of information to be collected and added to the financial data. It could also be non-financial data, as you can appreciate, that's added to the KPIs required for month-end reporting. So once we can actually connect to the data, what we want to do is essentially then visualize the information. So by CXO-Cockpit inheriting the financial data, we need to essentially use our up and ready 17 out-of-the-box finance dashboard templates. Now, to give you some examples of these, so what they look and feel like, these are waterfall charts already prepared in a dashboard. They are balance sheets already prepared. They are cash flow and financial statements already prepared. So an organization can be up and running in as little as 2 or 3 days by essentially downloading CXO-Cockpit, connecting to the underlying data source using one of the adapters, and then using one of the predefined templates, have a visualization of their data really, really quickly, which is unheard of if you look at some of the alternative solutions in the marketplace that I'm thinking about, maybe Tableaus or OBI, EE, etc. So one of the questions that generally happens at this point is that folk are saying, well, 17 doesn't sound like a lot. What about if we want to develop a dashboard that doesn't fit the template that you have? So we have the ability to create a free format template, and that becomes the 18th template. And as you can see by the image on the screen, essentially you can drag and drop objects onto the screen and create your own template. And what do I mean by that? So just to give you paint you a picture, essentially you could have a table in the top left of the screen. You might want a chart in the top right. You might want some commentary in a box on the left hand side, and so on. You would then save that template, obviously the look and feel and the format, etc., and that would become your 18th template. You could then grab another free format template and create a 19th and a 20th and so on, and you can keep going, and there's no limit to how many you wish to use. Typically though, our customers have identified that they tend to use most of the finance dashboards, the templates that exist, because these are typical for the CFO in terms of what they wish to see. So what I'd like to do now is not spend any more time on the presentation, but I'd like to jump into a live demonstration and show how, going from the printed report pack on the left hand side, we can migrate to the digital version in CXO-Cockpit. So just bear with me one moment while I jump onto the demonstration. Okay, so what I'm going to do now is log in to CXO-Cockpit. So I'm logging in as myself here. So I'm currently using an administrator profile, which gives me access to the front end of the solution. And equally, I also have access to the back end of the solution, which is the CXO designer. And that is the area where we would connect to other data sources, build dashboards that you can see in front of me, manage security settings, etc. But for the purposes of this webinar, we'll be spending most of the time in the actual front end of the solution. So what can we see? Well, we've arrived on a home page. At the top of the screen, we've got a number of different number of menu options. The naming convention of each of these, you can see we have named ourselves, but you can customize these to be applicable for the organization you work for. The number of different menu items, again, is customizable. You don't have to have as many as we do here, or you may want even more. But as you can see, as I scroll through them, you can see lots of different dashboards. And at any time when I see one that I'm interested in, I essentially just hover over the thumbnail, click on the thumbnail image, and then the dashboard will open. What CXO is actually doing is it's going away, it's linking direct to the underlying source data, and it's actually visualizing it straight away. If I go back to the home page, what we're looking at here is a fictitious company that we've actually created called Comma Communications Inc. We can see I'm looking at data for 2016. I'm looking at data for the period of September. I'm at the group level of the entity structure, and when I open up this box, you can actually see one example of the connectivity to the underlying source system. So just to pause at this point, this is where we inherit the underlying data, the hierarchical structure from the underlying system. If the structure of the entity changes within the underlying source system, it will automatically change within CXO-Cockpit. So in terms of maintenance, very low in CXO-Cockpit, and keep the maintenance within the underlying source system. If you could just bear with me, ladies and gentlemen, just 1 second. Okay, so just to press forward, what we can see at the top of the screen is a table of information, and then we've got a chart of information, and then right at the bottom we can see the start of the commentary process that's collected within CXO-Cockpit. So we can see point of view comments. I can also have a second tab, which is the subsidiary comments, which are below. And in this example, we can see a group level overview, and then we've got the 4 divisions listed nice and neatly and below this particular example. Okay, so what I'd like to do now is just share with you some of the key features of the solution. And to do that, we can see that within here, I'm able to switch this information from year-to-date actuals versus forecast. And I might wish to explore the information a little bit further. And here we can see the direct costs, because of the variance, seem to have gone beyond a particular threshold that we've set. And you have control to actually set that too. So what I'd like to do is explore direct costs. And remember, I'm looking at the direct costs from the dimensions within the EPM system that we're linking to. This particular example is actually linking to an HFM example. And here we can see the direct cost is then made up of total compensation, professional services, etc. Again, we can see the variance calculation is showing me that professional services seems to be the area of greatest concern. So I'd like to explore that a little bit further. Again, by pressing on the plus sign, it enables me to drop down to the next level within the dimension structure. And below professional services, we can see it's broken down further. What seems to be interesting is, again, the variance calculation is showing me that legal seems to be the challenge. So what I'd like to do now is refocus my attention on legal and look at the chart below, because I'm looking at the entity for legal. I can see that the challenges seem to be coming from South America or potentially from Europe that have gone beyond the actual forecasted amount. And as you can see, as I move around the actual screen itself, that the chart is telling me that I can drill down, if I wish, into South America to view a little bit more detail. So just by clicking on the chart, I'm refocusing now the point of view of this particular dashboard. So just by cast your mind, your gaze, up to the top, I've now dropped down into the South America entity, as you can see by the filters and the point of view setting at the top. So wherever I click, it's going to refocus. I can see that my problem children seem to be Brazil and Mexico. Brazil seems to be by far beyond the forecasted amount. So what I'm keen to do is click again and maybe get down to the lowest level, because I wish to find out what is the overspend challenge within legal in the Brazilian region. As we can see here, it seems to affect the 3 business units in the Brazilian region. By hovering over the chart, I'm actually at the bottom of the entity structure, or the dimension structure. And what I'm interested in finding out is the comments at the bottom. There doesn't seem to be any comments by my colleague in Brazil to explain what's going on. So this is where this is a real live example where I would like to take this dashboard. I'd probably make a phone call, but as you can appreciate, maybe in Europe, maybe it's the group level. I know that my colleagues are not actually there yet because of the time differences. So what I need to do is maybe start a conversation. And I do that by coming up to this feature, which is a start a conversation. And it enables me to take this dashboard and share it with my colleague in Brazil. So first of all is costs. Let's just give it a title. Add some participants. I know that Michael, South America, business controller, is responsible for that region. So I'm going to start a conversation. Right at the bottom, we can see a new tab called Conversation. Here is the title. Here are the participants, myself and Michael. And here I'd just like to, you know, type in my, oh, please. I can type in my reason, press the send button. And then what will actually happen is an email will be sent to Michael. He's obviously not in the system at the moment. And then he will, well, let's look at what he will see. So if I sign in as Michael, and imagine that he's come into work, he's checked his emails, he's clicked on the link, it's taken him to CXO-Cockpit. First of all, we can say I've signed in as Michael. The other thing that you'll notice that the menu structure is very much smaller, so obviously this is controlled within the security settings. We can see that the entity for Michael is the highest level he is South America. He can't see the group level, he can't see any of anywhere else across the business units. He can only see the information that's pertinent to his responsibility. Coming back to my story, which is one regarding the dashboard that was shared with him, well, we can see in this conversation tab here that he has an outstanding question. It's from myself. It's called costs. As soon as I click on it, it will then refocus the exact same dashboard. Brazil, highlighted on legal. The chart is open. The question below from myself is here. So he can now type back in, you know, the reason is whatever it may be. He can send that, and that will then do exactly the same for me. This is contained within the solution. I can even add additional participants. So maybe Michael can't answer the question. He might wish to add somebody to the conversation, but this conversation is private between the individuals in this conversation. Only when we copy it into the point of view comments does it actually become public knowledge. So that's up to one of the two people to actually be able to do so. So let me go back and sign in as Alfonso again. So we're back into the central admin role. You'll be able to see straight away that the reason is straight away here, so I can click on that and view it if I wish to. But that gives you a quick example of how the conversation tab works as well. What I'd like to do now is, if you remember, the challenge that we set at the beginning was actually creating the month-end report packs. So now you've seen some of the key features of CXO. What I'd like to do is actually create a reporting pack. Just to help me set up the scene here, I'd like to just share with you another presentation which just creates the overview of the report pack or commentary collection process, which I'll combine as part of this small story that I'm about to tell. So first of all, let's just explain the organizational structure so you can see what I intend to do as part of this report pack. At the group level, we've got Common Communications Inc. and we have a group financial controller. So I'm going to wear a hat of a group financial controller. We also have 4 regional financial controllers. I'm going to create a report pack. The report pack is typically as one would expect within an organization. It will have an agenda page, a P&L statement, balance sheet, etc. I'm going to concentrate on the P&L statement. The P&L statement is already created as a dashboard, but what I'm going to do is add the commentary to it. I'm going to collect it from the regions below the group level. And so how am I going to do that? In 3 very simple steps. The first step is each of the regional financial controllers, they're going to write some commentary. They're going to explain what's going on within the P&L statement associated with their region. They will then submit it to the group level. The second step is the group financial controller will aggregate the commentary for each of those regions. He'll do some final editing, some insight at the group level, and then the group financial controller will add that P&L plus the commentary to the report pack. And then, of course, we need to distribute and view the report pack. So let's have a look at what that looks like too. So before I jump into the demonstration of the commentary process, I just want to come back to this overview and just explain to you one further point, which is I'm going to wear a hat for the financial controller for Europe and the group level. And that's because I've already created commentary for the USA, South America, and for Asia. You don't wish in this demonstration to watch me do it 4 times. I only need to do it once for Europe, Then we'll have 4 at the bottom, and we'll also have the group level. So basically I'm doing 2 tasks, the European level and the group level. Hopefully that makes sense to the audience. Let me now just jump back to the demonstration. Okay, so before we do the commentary, let me show you the report pack and show you where I'm going to add the report to. So as I'm hovering over this feature, which is the Storyboard feature, this is the area where we have all of the report packs. Now, we call it storyboards, but just imagine that a storyboard is essentially a report pack. We have a new pop-up window. I can create a new storyboard. I can search for storyboards already created. Down the left-hand side are the existing storyboards that exist within my application. On the right-hand side are the actual pages associated with the report pack that's highlighted. And one of the fundamental benefits of CXO-Cockpit is that each dashboard that's already created, and a couple I've shared with you already as part of the demonstration, can become pages in a report book. So what's interesting about that is that you can add any of the dashboards to a report pack, but they also bring with them all of that wonderful drill down capability and the commentary collection, which I'm about to show you in a moment. So that feature ends up in the report pack. We will come back to this point in a couple of moments and share with you how we run these and share with others. The one for this demonstration that I'm interested in is this monthly management pack. We can see that currently it's made up of 4 pages. I'm going to find the P&L and add the P&L in between the first page and the second page. So this pack becomes 5 pages, and then we'll actually distribute it. So let me close that down. Let me go to the P&L menu. So this is the financial statement that I'm going to use, which is a profit and loss. I've got 2016. I'm at the period of September. I'm at the group level, Common Communications Inc. We can see at the bottom that the point of view comments for the group level is blank, but we can also see that the subsidiary comments, 3 have already been made. So let me click on the tab and let me share with you what's been written already. So USA have made a comment, South America have made a comment, and Asia have already made a comment, as I'm highlighting now on the screen. And obviously what I did say as part of my presentation is that the European level has not been completed yet. So what I would like to do now is show you how the European level creates a commentary and we get it to this point here. So to help me do that, let's actually sign in as the European controller so we can see how it's actually built up. So the user we have is Antonio. He is the European financial controller. Again, we can see the menu is a bit smaller. He can only see Europe, as you can see by the drop down, and you can see that Europe is made up of Italy, United Kingdom. I need to go to the P&L because that's the one that we're going to add as part of this workflow. So it's the same one, but now we're looking at the European level. Point of view comments at the European level obviously is blank. We can see that the 2 comments have been made by the subsidiaries. So let's just have a quick look at those by clicking on the tab. Italy, United Kingdom have already made their comments. So let's roll those comments up to the point of view level for Europe. And we do that by coming over to this pencil. And this pencil then allows me to do a number of things. And the one that I'm interested in is the copy from the children of this entity. So from it below, and bring those into my point of view. So just by clicking on that, it automatically brings it through. And obviously what I'm interested in is I have 2 individual comments. I want to be able to edit it and make some sense of the information, essentially change it, show that I can actually edit the information. So let's just enter some information here. As you can see, I would have the ability to make these changes here. Let's just highlight this to show a different color so it just stands out slightly. That's all I'll do for the time being, but you get the idea that you can actually edit this information. And now this is very different to the subsidiary comments that were originated here. I'm happy with this commentary. I wish to lock it down by clicking on the comments to be locked to prevent anybody else making any changes to it. As soon as I save that, which I have done by closing the editing box, it's now available at the group level. So what I would like to do now is log back out, log back in as myself at the group level, sign in as myself. Let's go to the P&L. It's on the menu, the first one on the menu here. We're now at the group level commentary, comma Communications Inc. I still haven't done my comments, but we can see the subsidiary comments in brackets 4. So that would obviously suggest that the European comments is now available straight away here, as you can see. So you can very quickly see, as part of a workflow process, how we can check the numbers, and we can also add commentary and roll it up to the European level. So they're all rolled up. But what I would like to do now is roll all of those 4 up to the group level. And again, using exactly the same process, I'm going to copy from the children, bring those in. I'll do my final edit, which is my CFO level group commentary. So let's just group level. So as we can see here, I would write my commentary in here. Let's just change this slightly so that we can see that it's different when we do the distribution. I want to also maybe demonstrate that I'd like to bring in some additional information, which is maybe a chart or information I'd like to add to the solution. And here I'm showing I'm bringing in some additional charts to support my overall summary. So as I scroll down slightly, we can see I've got group level commentary and insight. I've added a chart. I've left the commentary below the same, but I could have edited it. You saw that as part of the editor. One additional thing I've just forgotten about, which I'll add now, which is to maybe add some attachments. So I can even upload a file. So if I have some supporting documents that make sense of my information, again, we can see this now. I also have some additional documentation. So I can embed images, I can change the text and the graphics and the information. I can even add attachments to support the commentary associated with the group level. Again, I would lock that down by clicking on the lock feature. But what I'd like to do now is add it to the storyboard so I can distribute it for the month-end management meeting. And I do that by clicking on this button here. I'm just hovering on the star, which allows me to add to the storyboard. So I'm going to click on it now. The first thing it does is I can actually change the name of it, but let's just leave it as a profit and loss. Choose the storyboard that I wish to add it to. And if you recall, I was going to add it to the monthly management pack. Where was I going to add it? I did say between the first page and the second page, so I'm going to insert it after the first page. Click the Add Page button, and as you can see in the bottom right of the screen, the page has successfully been added to the storyboard. So what's actually happened is that this dashboard will exist for those folk who have access to view the information and view the commentary as well. But now, as part of some distribution or maybe a month-end management meeting, we have the ability to share the actual report pack itself. So let's go back to the storyboard. Let's find that monthly management pack, and we can see very, very simply, front page and agenda is number 1, profit and loss is number 2, and the other 3 have actually been pushed down in accordance with what I was setting out to achieve. So what we can do now is, now that we're actually in the distribution mode, I've got a number of different options. Typically, organizations say, well, we'd like to print this out because I'm jumping on a plane and I wish to actually, make some comments against it. If that's the case, then we have a feature which is to export the actual pack itself, and I can export that into PDF. I can drop it into PowerPoint, and I can drop it into Excel. These become 3 external documents outside of CXO-Cockpit. They're not linked to CXO-Cockpit, but they will meet 2016 September. I'm at the group level, so you would see the screen image behind the back here if I exported it. For the purposes of time, I'm not going to do that. What I'm going to do is just two things. One is show you that I can share this. And sharing is a little bit like the conversations feature that you saw earlier on. So here I am the actual owner of it. You can see by the role, there's a little king symbol icon that allows me to show that I'm the owner of it. I wish to maybe say, well, let's share it with Michael. Let's also share it with Antonio. Let's make them view only. I'd like to make Antonio an editor because he's going to do some additional work for me. If I wanted to, I can even make them king and therefore pass on control to those individuals. In the same way as the conversations feature, you can actually see at the top of the screen, there's a small notification bell, which essentially indicates to the users that they have received a new notification that they have a new storyboard added to their storyboard pack. Of course, if they're not in the system, they will get an email in the same way. So that's one way of sharing the information with others. The final way is to imagine that we're actually going to have a meeting and we want to run through all of these 5 reports in the month-end meeting. The CFO is conducting the meeting and all of the heads of the departments are present. So therefore, let's go ahead and actually run this as if it's a live meeting. Well, I would do it by pressing the play button. I would then hit the play button here. And so now what's actually happened with CXO is that you can see 2 things have changed. The first thing is that we have a play feature functionality at the top, allowing me to step through the individual 5 pages, or I'm able to use this drop down and jump straight away to any one of the 5 that's listed in the menu here, so I can do it in that particular way. Here is my front page, and I did indicate as a small thumbnail image. I'm now moving to the second page, and obviously if you recall, this was the one that we added the commentary as part of this particular process. So we can see here the group level commentary at the bottom. We can see all the information that we added a little bit earlier on. But as part of the report, as part of this presentation, I can still use all of the drill down features that you saw when I was on the home page. So wherever you would see a plus sign, I'm able to expand the information. So here I'm looking at gross sales. I wish to look at Europe, so I can click on the Europe. Here on the right hand side in this financial statement, I can actually see the periodic information. It's showing me from January 15 going back 12 months. I can zoom into this information if I wish to. I'm looking at Europe gross sales, but for September, the dimensions associated with the underlying data source, as you remember I said it was HFM, is telling me that I'm looking at information for channel, customer, product, or entity, because that's what makes sense as part of that particular dimension. But if I maybe, for instance, looked at net sales, cost of goods sold, and looked at the information, you could see that the underlying information is only showing me now. I can look at this by product or entity because that's all that makes sense and from the underlying data source. So I have all that wonderful drill down capability even whilst I'm in the presentation mode. Let me step through to the third one in this presentation, and that would be the reason for this particular one is that we've got a nice rolling forecast. We can see here the actuals from January through to September. I have a budget for September column here. I have a variance calculation that's taken place, and then I have a little what if statement that's allowing me to put some thresholds in. So here we've got a what if statement within CXO-Cockpit that's saying if the variance goes above this number, which in this case is 20%, then please allow the users to enter some information. And again, I'm live in the presentation, but here I can even, type in information here as I speak, as you can see me doing it live on the screen here. So we can add in information, inline comments, not just collected in commentary boxes at the bottom. By the way, the commentary boxes don't have to be at the bottom of the screen. They can be positioned anywhere within a dashboard. Let me step through to the next one in the report pack. and that is a waterfall chart. And the reason I have this particular waterfall chart in a profit and loss is because this is by far one of the most common within the top 5 requested dashboards to be created within the finance team. They're interested in looking at gross margin and all the different movements. Here we can see gross margin, actuals compared to budget. I'm looking at it by entity. At the moment, I'm looking at it as all the individual areas, but I can just look at the base members or the direct members if I wish to. I can not look at the gross margin. Maybe I wish to look at direct costs. Again, I can change that. But as you can see here, the power of CXO is the ability to have one particular screen, which looks like it's one chart, but because of all that interactivity, it allows me to go in multiple directions. So here I essentially have maybe, I don't know how many is in this list, but maybe 15 waterfall charts all within this one particular dashboard. It could be as part of the meeting that somebody says, well, actually, how does this impact upon cash flow? And if I go up to my menu items here, well, one of the cash flow documents is not actually live within this presentation. So this allows me, because I'm in CXO-Cockpit, to not end the meeting. Well, then let's actually explore it by going to the menu, finding the cash flow, stepping outside of the report pack, do some additional analysis over in the actual cash flow document itself, and we can see straight away that we've moved away from the storyboard, because at the top it's saying to me, you know, when you've finished your further analysis by going elsewhere within the application, it allows me to click on the reset storyboard, and it will take me back to exactly where we were when we moved away from the actual storyboard itself. So it's a very good way of actually, you know, keeping to the agenda of the actual meeting itself. Okay, so as I see, we've got around about 4 minutes left. I'm going to stop the demonstration for now, and what I'm going to do now is invite Nick to join back in the conversation, and I'm going to open up some of the questions that we have. So if I could just ask the audience to just bear with me 1 second while I go through some of these. Okay. So the first question I've got is, yes, somebody's asking, can we share the slides with the audience? And I'll take that particular question. We will actually share the slides with the attendees on the webinar today, so that will be fine. There is a second question, which is CXO-Cockpit a cloud or on-premise version? Again, I will take that question, Nick. So the answer to that one is currently we only have an on-premise version of CXO-Cockpit. However, our development team throughout 2017 have been working on a cloud version of the software, and there is going to be some further information on the release date which will be mentioned during 2018. So there will be a cloud version that's coming up in the future. There is another question, which is, can you drill back into the source application? Well, that's an interesting question, but essentially what I'm drilling here is I'm actually drilling the information from the source application. So as you can appreciate, when I drill on net sales, for example, it's net sales in Hyperion in my example. When I drill on smartphones and tablets, it's the smartphones and tablets in Hyperion. When I drill on Androids, these are the actual individual products within the source system. If you wish to drill further into more transactional level data, we can do it. We'd have to create another level of drilling back into the source system. One of our customers in the DACH region happens to be McDonald's, is actually doing exactly that, drill back into another system. It requires inserting a window within CXO-Cockpit to actually drill back into that source system. But here I'm simply drilling in the dimensions from the underlying source system.
Can I just butt in there, Alfonso?
Yeah, go ahead, Nick.
this profit, the financial statement that's on the screen at the moment, if it's coming from HFM and the metadata has been created so that you're able to drill down, then CXO-Cockpit will take that data. If in HFM an organisation hasn't carried out that drill down in their what's known as their metadata, their dimensions and members, the same will apply to CXO-Cockpit. So it really does depend on what the source, how the source system is set up. If it's set up for a drill down option, or if it's not set up for a drill down option, then CXO-Cockpit will take the data accordingly.
That's correct, Nick. And just to add to that, in addition to that, CXO-Cockpit, you can actually create a list of drill down path that's not already within the actual underlying source system. So you don't necessarily have to follow the dimensional structure that's in the underlying system. So it could be, for example, that net sales goes down into products here within the underlying source system. But in my reporting and as part of my analysis, my dashboard, I would like to see net sales by entity. So here we're going in a different, yes, the entities are all already in the underlying source system, but CXO can point to a different dimension and go down in a different dimension. So it's another advantage of CXO. It's very flexible. You don't have to follow the underlying source system if that's not the way that you view your reporting. Now, I'm conscious, Nick, that we are 1 minute over schedule, so I think what we should do is we should wrap up. So I'd like to thank everybody for attending the webinar. And Nick, to you for final closing thoughts.
The closing thoughts are that we should try and get large customers involved with CXO-Cockpit, because they don't realise what they're missing until they've actually used the product. As I said, I've been on a number of workshops and webinars, and it's by far the best tool of its kind in the EPM space.
Okay, thanks everybody. We're going to end the webinar now. Thank you.
Thank you.